The term posthumanism literally means after humanism or beyond humanism. It can refer to a multitude of concepts such as criticism of traditional humanism, discussion of transhumanism and becoming more than we are, or even projections of a global AI takeover. We will be focusing on the latter in this video essay all about Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, and how its streamlined take on posthumanism is a clear entry point for basic posthumanist thought. Mega Man Maverick Hunter X was released on the PlayStation Portable in 2005. It's a remake of the original Mega Man X, which was released in 1993. It was meant to be the first installment in a complete reboot of the Mega Man X series, but low sales rendered this goal unfeasible. The executive producer, Keiji Inafune, stated that this goal to reboot the series largely stemmed from a desire to retell the story. Back in the 90s, there weren't a lot of video games trying to have thematically or morally complex narratives, and the earlier installments in the X series have pretty shallow stories. Additionally, there were certain plot developments that Inafune wanted to reconsider. Throughout the 2000s, there was an increased focus on the secondary protagonist, Giroux, and he basically stole the spotlight from X for 3 whole games. X was supposedly the main character, but it didn't feel like he was. He didn't get the complex and moving romance, tragedy, moral dilemmas, nor plot-important backstory that Giroux did. This, among other retcons, would be the focus of the new Maverick Hunter X series. So how did Inafune pull it off? Well, let's take our first step into the world of Mega Man Maverick Hunter X by looking at its included prequel animation, The Day of Sigma. In a flashback during the Day of Sigma, scenes from X's creation are shown. In the English translation, his creator Dr. Light tells him that his name is X, a reference to the mathematical variable X, meant to represent his unknown limitless potential. He also tells X that he has given him the power not only to think, but also to worry, and to grow as he fights, hoping that he will use his conscience to work for peace someday. It is clear from this interaction that X is much more than a robot. He is built to be something human, or more than human. 30 years after X's completion and Dr. Light's death, a historian named Dr. Kane discovers X and uses his revolutionary artificial intelligence as a basis for the Reploids. These Reploids are a new generation of robots that possess the same free will and mental capacities as X, hence the name Reploid. However, as derivatives, the Reploids have several limitations that keep them from accessing the same level of humanity as X. First, they are still confined by the circumstances of their creation. They are still mere extensions of man, made for specific functions, not yet men of their own. Their artificial minds and bodies are seemingly unable to change or grow like humans. Additionally, they lack the powerful emotions and empathy that X has, which makes them less human in a Fukuyama-esque sense. They have come very close in this regard indeed, but are still not as emotionally capable as X. Occasionally, Reploids will use their free will to harm others or to commit crimes. These dangerous Reploids are labeled as Mavericks, and kept in check by fellow Reploids in a worldwide law enforcement agency, aptly named, well, the Maverick Hunters. Feeling a responsibility to maintain peace, X has joined the Maverick Hunters and works under the command of a powerful Reploid named Sigma. On the battlefield, X's emotions are seen as a weakness by his Reploid comrades. He hesitates under pressure, he overthinks complex situations. Contrast this with Sigma, whose callousness makes him a decisive and effective warrior. This is clearly shown during the opening of the Day of Sigma, when X hesitates to shoot a violent robot's generator to avoid harming an innocent hostage. Taking matters into his own hands, Sigma rushes in with his laser sword and ruthlessly slashes the generator, stopping the robot's rampage, but dismembering the hostage in the process. The main conflict of Mega Man Maverick Hunter X occurs when Sigma himself goes Maverick, recruiting many of the Maverick Hunters to instigate an anti-human rebellion. When X asks Sigma about his motives, he replies,
"I believe that it's time we put Reploid potential to the ultimate test. There are many others on my side. You see, evolution requires sacrifice."
Not only is Sigma misanthropic, but he wants to test Reploid potential, namely X. He hypothesizes that if the lowly warrior X can face his army, then it will demonstrate the extent of Reploid's self-determination. His plans will prove posthuman thought is correct either way. If the humans succumb to genocide, then it proves that Reploids are the superior form of life. If X successfully stops Sigma, then Reploids truly can evolve after all. Thus, X joins the Maverick Hunters in the war against Sigma, and the game of Mega Man Maverick Hunter X can begin. Being a video game, Maverick Hunter X is multimodal in nature. That is, it teaches the player through a variety of modes such as visuals or text, or in the case of a video game, the procedural mode, which basically just means gameplay. Some important narrative elements of Maverick Hunter X are contained in the procedural mode, but for now, we're going to focus on the other three modes: visuals, audio, and text. During the conflict with Sigma's army, X meets a cast of foes. He has his ally Zero, a skilled Maverick Hunter whom he looks up to, but every other major character is an antagonist. The 8 bosses which X fights in the game's 8 levels are all former Maverick Hunters in Sigma's rebellion. One will first notice that their Reploid bodies are all based on anthropomorphic animals, and they all have names indicating so, such as
Chill Penguin, Sting Chameleon, Launch Octopus.
This animal motif, while a fun design choice, is also an exaggerated portrayal of how advanced X is compared to the Reploids. They are simple beasts by comparison. When X confronts a Maverick boss in each level, they briefly speak. X attempts to reason with them, asking why they joined Sigma and requesting a peaceful surrender. We learn that they each have their own reasons. Spark Mandrill followed out of blind loyalty.
Do you think Commander Sigma is insane, X?
Flame Mammoth is a brute who already believed in Reploid supremacy.
Sigma must be as crazy as you say. He keeps talking about how you are the future of Reploids. Can you believe that, X?
And Chill Penguin was offered money, power, and freedom.
Chill Penguin? Why? Why? I wouldn't expect you to understand.
None of them is actually interested in lofty ideas of Reploid potential like Sigma. The closest is the
Kawanger.
beetle, Boomerang Kawanger, who misunderstands Sigma and believes he is only concerned about X's combat capabilities.
Is that what you mean by potential? I do more than fight.
No! All you do is fight us. There is nothing else.
X never understands or agrees with their selfish motives, showing the depth of his sense of justice. The only animal Maverick he has sympathy for is Storm Eagle, who was strong-armed into the rebellion against his will.
If that's the case, I have no choice but to destroy you. It's my duty as a Maverick Hunter.
Then the least I can do is fight with all my strength.
Rosi Braidotti has explored the Oedipal relationship between humans and animals through posthuman theory. She describes it as framed by the dominant human and structurally masculine habit of taking for granted free access to and the consumption of the bodies of others, animals included. This description can be applied to the relationship between the humanoid Sigma and his 8 animal lieutenants, as he manipulates their comparatively simple desires in order to advance his own grand vision. It can also be applied to the relationship between X and the animal bosses. X guns them down and gains access to a new weapon upon each of their deaths. This reeks of the consumption of the body of others, as Braidotti put it. This dynamic, where humanoid Reploids take advantage of animal Reploids, fulfills Braidotti's idea of meshing man with technology, but is ironically also a world which maintains its antagonism towards animals. There's a degree of irony in that it is posthuman in a robotic sense, but animals are left out of the equation. In fact, during the game, many of the enemies you face are animal in shape, given some of them are also humanoid in shape, but they clearly lack the same judgmental and free will skills of Reploids. While infiltrating Sigma's palace at the climax of the game, X must again fight each of the 8 animal Mavericks. Sigma has revived each of them. However, they are merely shells of their former selves.
I am Launch Octopus. I am under orders to deal with any intruders.
This is again indicative of the exploitation of animals. There's also X's self-proclaimed rival, Vile. He's a loose cannon Maverick Hunter with overly violent tendencies, and in this story, he holds a tenuous loyalty to Sigma. In reality, he just wants to surpass X no matter what it takes, and to prove to both the world and himself that he is the one with the potential to change history, that he holds the legendary posthuman traits that would lead Reploids into a new age.
You've been drawn into Sigma's rebellion as well?
Rebellion? I couldn't care less. I just hate you, that's all.
It is worth mentioning that Vile is the only of Sigma's Maverick lieutenants who is humanoid, and he is the one who comes the closest to defeating X. He is also the only one to pilot a vehicle, which is a distinctly human trait. He is even playable in his own non-canon side scenario, where he too defeats the animal Mavericks and takes their weapons in search of power. Regardless of his actions, however, Vile is fated to fail in his quest and to be destroyed by X, due to his lack of empathy, which the story has made clear is X's true power. Vile is the complete opposite of X. While X's empathy makes him hesitant, Vile's arrogance makes him impulsive. He's the epitome of the dark selfishness and pride that all humans are capable of, and his final confrontation with X is meant to deliberately show the contrast between the two. He's completely unreasonable. This makes him the perfect counter to X, one that X cannot overcome alone. After watching his friend Zero sacrifice himself to defeat Vile, X becomes incensed and charges towards Sigma's hideout to finish the war. This time his empathy is not holding him back, but pushing him forwards. His head is no longer clouded by hesitation, and he has become the same sort of decisive warrior Sigma is. Upon entering Sigma's tower, the music is dire and mysterious, and the lighting is dark. X's motivation is not a development to be celebrated, but rather one that brings uncertainty. To test X one last time, he sends another animal after him, Velgarder, which is more like a guard dog than a lieutenant. And of course, X is able to easily dispatch it. Sigma is aware of X's progress and congratulates him, making clear his motives once more.
Our potential is limitless.
Note the use of the pronoun our, which infers that Sigma believes X's limitless growth proves the same capacity for all Reploids. However, his final form is still that of an animal, showing that he is still truly out of his league compared to X, just like his Maverick followers. Seeing how powerful X has become confirms Sigma's theory after all. His rebellion was worth it, even if it now crumbles around him. We have discussed the narrative scenes, the visual, auditory, and textual modes of the Day of Sigma at Maverick Hunter X. We now turn attention to the procedural mode, the design elements that make up the ludic experience, or the gameplay. The player begins the game controlling X, who is yet to access his body's full potential, and thus is quite weak. He can run, jump, scale walls, and fire blasts from his arm cannon, the X-Buster. The player may feel a sense of accomplishment from beating the game's first level, destroying robotic enemies and avoiding obstacles along the way, but this is quickly taken away by the first boss, Vile. The player is left powerless as Vile threatens to crush X with his ride armor, but fortunately, he is saved by his friend Zero. Being derided by Vile and saved by Zero should motivate the player to make X stronger, so that they may defeat the Mavericks and equal Zero. As the player advances through the game, X grows stronger. Defeating each of the game's Maverick bosses gives X access to new weapons, and the player can find secret upgrades such as armor and backup health hidden throughout the levels. By the time the 8 bosses are finished and the way to the final battle with Sigma is revealed, X is a completely different character than at the beginning of the game. He has a huge arsenal, the ability to dash at high speeds, and other upgrades. The player's skill at the game will also have increased. Because X is his own character and not a self-insert for the player, they are not able to dictate his narrative choices within the game. They participate alongside X in the conflict whether they like it or not, unless they turn off the game entirely. The one part of X's mentality that they do hold dominion over is his combat strategy. Regarding learning in video games, researcher James Paul G. wrote, "The player must figure out the rule system that constitutes the simulation, or the rules that the simulation follows next to how it is designed. The player must discover what is possible and impossible within the simulation in order to solve problems and carry out goals. Within this simulation, it extends to X as well. He is effectively learning patterns of combat and finding ways to carry out his goals. It is established that X is an inexperienced fighter at the beginning of the game, but this clearly changes as the player's experience informs X of new strategies."
For a B-class hunter, you certainly learn quickly from your experiences in battle.
For example, the best way to fight a boss is to learn its pattern, to learn how they fight, and to develop a counterattack. The player will quickly learn that shooting Armored Armadillo while his shields are active is a fruitless endeavor, forcing them to change tactics. They might fire while the boss has his guard down, or experiment with X's arsenal to find an especially effective weapon. This gives the player an active role in helping X achieve his oft-discussed potential, in a sense, helping him evolve. This meta-narrative implies that the reason X is so special, this unlimited potential he holds, is the fact that he is influenced by a player. The reason he seems so humanoid to his fellow Reploids, besides his emotional temperament, is because he is literally being guided by a human. This turns X from merely an advanced robot into something cyborg, something more than machine, and truly embodies the post-human themes of the game. X is still merely an extension of man to the player, but to his Reploid peers in the game's world, he's a true man of his own. Nay, a Mega Man. Mega Man Maverick Hunter X is not a very complex game. It is not meant to be a sophisticated piece of art and clearly appeals to a young demographic. Because of this, the video game and its animation The Day of Sigma make for a very straightforward and approachable introduction to posthuman thought. It clearly identifies posthumanist ideas and ironies via its plot, characters, and themes using a multimodal approach. This essay has proved Maverick Hunter X as a simple yet effective example of posthumanist cyberculture, much in the same way Sigma proved so of Reploids, using his own rebellion. Thanks for watching. What's up, guys? you might know me as a guy who makes random videos that are sometimes funny and sometimes they try to make you think really hard. I've been impressed by the success of this YouTube channel, likely more from my meme videos than from my educational content, but I just kind of put what I want here, and if you guys want to stick around, that's great. I actually wrote this essay for a class at university, and I was so pleased with the outcome I decided to make it a video essay. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe I'll cover more Mega Man material in the future. I love Mega Man. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. I'll catch you guys later. Shut up! Finish the recording.
I am the octopus.